in many ways, the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood was a product of its time. In the Victorian age, people in Britain were falling back into focusing on all sorts of traditional ideas from the medieval era especially. And, of course, among those were the legends surrounding King Arthur and the rest of the matter of Britain. And it's no surprise, then, that the painters of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood were also relatively interested in this particular subject. One thing that occurred when these stories became trendy again was Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote The Lady of Shalott, and we've already read that, of course, and seen several paintings about it. But this right here is William Holman Hunt's version. It was his last great masterpiece, and it has her here in a storm of her own making, and Lancelot's outside the window right there, but she, of course, is trapped. She can't leave, even though he's right there. Here we have Frederick Augustus Sande's 1864 painting of Morgan Le Fay, one of the primary villains of the Arthurian Cycle, King Arthur's half-sister, and the mother of their son Mordred. And here she's depicted as a sorceress engaged in some magical ritual and probably plotting some great evil. Just the look on her face is already telling of the intention, what this is supposed to convey about her. This is The Beguiling of Merlin by Edward Coley Burne-Jones, painted in 1874. Burne-Jones was a fan of Sir Thomas Malory's Morte d'Arthur, but in this case he actually based the painting on the late medieval French romance of Merlin. It depicts Merlin beguiled by Nimue, the Lady of the Lake, and he is ensnared and entrapped within the roots of this tree. And there are many different ideas of how the story goes. In some cases, the Lady of the Lake is just evil, and others, it's just because Merlin won't leave her alone because he's so ensnared with her. This is an 1864 painting by Dante Gabriel Rossetti, and the title is going to sound like a joke, but it's How Sir Galahad, Sir Bors, and Sir Percival were fed with the sangreal, but Sir Percival's sister died by the way. And I'm assuming that's Sir Percival's sister right there lying dead on the ground, but I can't really tell. But yeah, it's those three knights. Very famous scene. They finally get the Holy Grail. And then to continue that narrative, we have Arthur Hughes' painting from 1865 called Sir Galahad. It shows what happens sort of immediately after to Galahad. He finds the Grail and then comes to his death, and he's welcomed by angels as his journey ends. Yeah, that's a very well-known part of the story. He dies on the way back home after finally finding the Grail. One thing that ties all this together is just how it continues the trend of having British subject matter in stories, but the themes are very French and Frankish in nature. Even back in the medieval era, a lot of the stories surrounding King Arthur were very French in nature once they became really popular. The idea of a knight in this context comes from France. Of course, there's a certain degree of root in British legend, but a lot of the thematic elements come from France.